believe the Chinese Foreign Ministry is actually conducting a press conference as we speak.
我们也从美军在伊拉克、叙利亚所作所为，以及喀布尔大撤退当中，看到了这种民主的承诺和带引号的强大。作为美国政府的3号人物，面对自己国内积重难返的民主问题，佩洛西花着纳税人的钱，坐着美国的军机串台作秀，干着违反国际法和国际关系基本准则、损害他国内政、主权、领土完整的勾当，只能让世人更加看清美国的虚伪丑陋，使美国的国家信誉进一步破产。连美国共和党的议员格林他都说，佩洛西没有留在国内来解决困扰美国人民的问题，他掌握了几十年的权力，而整个国家却在崩溃。这种捍卫民主的假勇气已经够多了。所以我们呢还想提醒佩洛西，他面对的是占全人类1/5人口的中国，挑衅的是14亿多中国人民，民意不可欺，民意不可违。佩洛西想凭借此秀到底流芳百世呢，还是遗臭万年？相信历史会做出公正的答案。下一个问题。
My colleague Abhishek Jha is with us, bringing us coverage as the Chinese Foreign Ministry makes that address as we speak. Let's go over to Abhishek to understand more. Abhishek, over to you. Abhishek, are you able to hear me?
Yes, that's clear.
Abhishek, I didn't ask you a question. I was simply asking if you could give us more context to the address we've just seen the Chinese Foreign Ministry deliver.
Okay, so the Chinese MOFA's spokesperson's remarks are in context of Taiwan. The recent visit of Pelosi to Taiwan, this is where the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been regularly updating media. In fact, yesterday only, back to back, they issued 3 to 4 press releases. This was quite unprecedented. So, in terms of media communication, they have been very aggressive to tell and put across their point of view about Nancy Pelosi's visit, and they have said that this is in clear violation of past commitments to USA, to China, and also the encouragement of the kind of ruling that Taiwan has, or any possible independence that Taiwan wants to have, will certainly be met with a countermeasure from Chinese side. China also sees Nancy Pelosi's visit as something that will encourage Taiwan to have more sovereignty, because China still claims that Taiwan falls under its sovereignty of mainland China. Both of it, Taiwan and China, were part of the same ruling dispensation decades ago, but ever since People's Republic of China was formed, the erstwhile government in China under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek, that got sheltered in Taiwan, and since then, for almost 7 decades now, China and Taiwan have been at differences. There have been skirmishes in past also between the two nations.
Okay.
But
Abhishek,
globally,
I'm so sorry. We do actually now have a translation of what the Chinese Foreign Ministry just announced. We'll go over to that. We'll come back to you for more expertise on it. I'm going to read out to you what we just heard. The issue is about China and China's sovereignty and integrity. It is a probation and an infringement upon China's sovereignty. That's a statement we've heard them repeating again in a form of warning China to the United States. Let's go over back to my colleague Abhishek. Abhishek, the Chinese Foreign Ministry making the announcement. We're going to go over to hear them once again. Then Abhishek will come to you.
Pelosi's visit, U.S. officials now try to justify an even-ship plan. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said China tries to turn what is in the historical norm into a crisis, and is the one that's escalating. National Security Council Coordinator John Kirby said this visit doesn't violate One China principle, One China policy. What's your comment?
I think you actually captured the essence of their remarks, and you see how hard the U.S. officials have been trying to explain it away and even putting the blame on us. So I think it reflects the absence of credibility, the lack of knowledge of history, and the lack of reflection on the part of the U.S. government. In China, we have an ancient saying that is, a man will be facing his problems and the troubles because of the lack of reading about history. So I think it's time that the U.S. officials catch up with the history lessons on the Taiwan question. So I think it's important for me to give you some historical facts about the Taiwan question, and I hope that you will reflect them in your reports. There is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is part of China. The government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the entire China. This is at the heart of the One China principle and also a shared understanding and a basic norm in international relations. In October 1971, the 26th session of the UNGA adopted Resolution 2758, deciding to restore all its rights to the PRC and to recognize the representatives of its government as the only legitimate representatives of China to the UN, and to expel forthwith the representatives of Chiang Kai-shek from the place which they unlawfully occupy at the UN and in all the organizations related to it. Right now, including the United States, there are already 181 countries who have established diplomatic ties with China on the basis of recognizing the One China principle. Historically, the Taiwan question used to be the biggest obstacle to the normalization of China-U.S. relations. China was firmly committed to the One China principle and wouldn't budge on this question. So in 1971, when the U.S. affirmed to China the new principles that it would follow with regard to the Taiwan question, and they include the U.S. would acknowledge that there is only one China in the world and Taiwan is a part of China. The U.S. would not repeat the phrase that the status of Taiwan is undetermined. The U.S. had not supported and would not support movements for Taiwan independence. When President Nixon visited China in 1972, he reaffirmed those principles to Premier Zhou Enlai, and hence the Shanghai Communique. And in that communique, the U.S. made it very clear that the U.S. acknowledges that all Chinese on either side of the Taiwan Strait maintain there is but one China, and that Taiwan is a part of China. The U.S. government does not challenge that position. And this is what kick-started the normalization process of Sino-U.S. ties. And in the joint communique in 1978 on establishment of diplomatic ties, the U.S. said, and I quote, "The U.S. recognizes the government of the PRC as the sole legal government of China and acknowledges the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China," end of quote. And in the August 17th joint communique of 1982, the U.S. said, and I quote, "The U.S. recognizes the government of the PRC as the sole legal government of China and acknowledges the Chinese position that there is but one China and Taiwan is part of China." And also it reiterates that the U.S. government has no intention of infringing on Chinese sovereignty.
All right, Abhishek Jha with us right now to bring us more context on these statements. Abhishek, we heard statements coming in there from security officials in the Chinese government. Now, our audiences might know President Xi Jinping is possibly on the precipice of coming in for a third term, and his emphasis on Taiwan has been huge over the last few months in particular. The messaging we just heard, does that come along expected lines?
Of course, this is all on the very much on the expected lines, because the kind of conversation that the spokesperson from Ministry of Foreign Affairs from China was telling reporters were the facts that has already been repeated so many times in the past few days, that the sovereignty of China has been infringed upon by the visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan. Taiwan is part of Chinese sovereignty. There is one China only in the world, and any attempt to cessate or any attempt to encourage independence of any part or small island of China will be dealt with countermeasures from the Chinese side. This time, Taiwan has a very different set of ruling. It is a democratically elected government that works there, and Chinese side have a communist setup of governance, and they have never liked the way democratically elected governments in Taiwan functions, and as they want to reunite China, and they have probably been talking about reunification of China, where the mainland China will have the rights and all the responsibility also of all the small island nation, including Hong Kong. If you talk about Taiwan, there are other parts also, including Tibet. So all the autonomous regions will be part of reunified China. So this is the larger ambitious goal of Chinese Communist Party, which has not been practically possible for over 7 decades now. So this is the in that context only that China is very furious about this visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, that will in a way embolden other smaller parts or smaller islands of Chinese who actually fall under the Chinese sovereignty. Apparently, they will also be encouraged to have more diplomatic contacts and engagement with other parts of the globe. The statements that the MOFA spokesperson was telling about, she was mentioning 1971 United Nations General Assembly's commitment that there is only one China and China will have the sovereignty over these areas. There has also been commitments from USA side to China that they will also respect Chinese sovereignty over these islands, especially over Taiwan, and USA will have relations with Taiwan in terms of commerce, culture, and no diplomatic engagement will be there. But the kind of the travel that we are currently seeing, Nancy Pelosi is third in the rank of hierarchy in US government. She is an elected official, and now she is meeting elected official of Taiwan, president in there. So this is quite a this comes very much under the high level diplomatic engagement between United States and Taiwan. So this is something that China is trying to call a violation of communique and agreement between China and USA in the past, that has always helped to keep balance the relationship of USA with Taiwan, USA with China, and Chinese relation with the other global peers across not only in South China Sea but across globe also.
Thank you for that context. For our audiences, diplomat Manju Seth remains with us. Let's go over to her to understand more. Ma'am, thank you so much for staying with us. Ma'am, I'd like to come to you here for more context. Obviously, right now, we're looking at the short-term consequences of the Speaker's visit. But could you walk our audiences, obviously you'll have to be a bit of a future teller here, but could you walk our audiences through what the possible long-term consequences for the United States, for China, and for Taiwan, the three stakeholders here, could be?
Of course, as you mentioned, it's a futuristic projection, very difficult to say. But I think in the short term, whatever saber rattling to some extent, or some kind of Chinese reaction is there, and they're saying they're going to conduct exercises, live fire exercises, etc. But I think in the long term, it should, through diplomatic channels, I feel, come to a little more balanced balance. But we have to remember that China, as I mentioned earlier, is a rising power, the second most powerful now in terms of economy, and because of that, it feels its time has come, and it's already built these bases, armed bases in the South China Sea. And if you look at the way the aircraft of Nancy Pelosi had to take a circuitous route to reach Taiwan.
We're going to have to go to breaking news that we're getting as we speak right now. This is breaking news coming in from the same story. The PLA Eastern Theater Command has sent advanced warplanes to exercise combat takeoffs from different airports and conduct missions in different airspaces. The combat joint exercises are in response to Pelosi's visit in the Taiwan Island area. The visuals we're showing you on your screens are from those trips. Now, my colleague Abhishek Jha is with us to bring us more coverage. Abhishek, when you speak to analysts about what expected actions China was going to take over the last 2 days, sending warplanes in this manner was very much one of them. Tell us then, is there any kind of alarm to these developments?
In fact, there has been enough of alarms bells that Chinese side have repeatedly, tried to ring. Over the last 72 hours, there have been military drills going on across the Taiwan Strait. The Fujian is a part of Chinese mainland that is closer to Taiwan, so there is a serious military establishment that is operating there, and they are trying to create of an airspace which is not operable for any commercial plane. China has, in fact, last night China has announced that the airspace in and around Taiwan Strait will not be open for any commercial plane. But then Nancy Pelosi was traveling in the U.S. Air Force plane, and this is how that plane got permission, and it was it allowed to be entered in those airspace, and this is how she landed. So all the maneuvering, the naval assets that are operating in Taiwan Straits and the South China Sea and the East China Sea are part of that mega drill that China is trying to posture as a show of military strength in the eye of Nancy Pelosi's visit. These reports that we are seeing that the fighter jets are flying over those airspace which is Taiwan's identified defense zone, and also we have reports from other USA side that USA had also lifted some of its fighter jets from Japan, and there had been movement of USS Ronald Reagan and their other warships in and around Taiwanese Strait of South China Sea. So there is a lot of military maneuvering is going on in and around Taiwan in the context of Nancy Pelosi's visit, but so far practically both sides have been very patient, and no fireworks have been reported, and it looks like the show of strength that China wanted to express, it has been able to express, but there has not been any contact or any any engagement that has been reported so far. Situation is highly tense, but it looks like it will dissipate sooner.
Abhishek, I'd like to request that you stay with us right now. For now, I am